Hi, I'm Rich Wynn.
And I'm Rebecca Nixon, and this is the PropTech Growth Podcast.
Every episode, we interview an expert in the PropTech startup space, gathering their advice and expertise to help you run a successful PropTech business.
I'm the Portable PropTech CMO, and I help PropTech startups build and scale their commercial growth strategy.
I'm Rich from Rich Wynn Consultancy. I specialise in operations, sales and process, helping fintechs and PropTech companies to grow. Peter, if you explain who you are, your background, and then we'll go into the Legito. What is it?
Legalito. It's not difficult.
Legalito.
Yeah.
I'm northern. It would be Legalito.
Legalito.
Legalito. Got you.
You see?
Got you.
My name's Peter Ambrose. I started my background was in technology, spent 15, 20 years on the technology side of things. Came out of that, set up a law firm called The Partnership. Doing that for about 15 years now. We always built our own technology, always built our own platform, saw an awful lot of benefit from that. What we found was a lot of the ways that we did things, lawyers really liked, and they felt that it would be a really good idea if we could share those ideas with other law firms so that they could benefit from those concepts as well. And the important aspect of this was that we had to take the ideas that we were working with and put them in a way that they could be shared with people who didn't necessarily have case management systems, didn't necessarily have processes in place. And the challenge was going to be what did we need to address first, and how on earth could we get people to adapt? And so that was our big challenge. And we looked at several things that we did terribly well, mostly around risk management. So we looked at things like checklists. We looked at things like matter allocation, who was doing what work and so forth. But the big issue that we saw, and what our insurers confirmed was the problem, was the way that people manage their inquiries, their pre-contract inquiries. This is where the risk is, this is where the delays are, and this is where the problems are. So this was a problem worth fixing. So that's what we decided to address first. And because it was a problem worth fixing, and I think where people make a lot of mistakes is that they don't look enough, they don't look closely enough at what people are doing in their day-to-day world, and to say, what is the problem they've got, but what's the real problem? And so we were always being approached by a number of different people who would say, I've got this great solution to this problem. And it's a huge problem, whether it was onboarding or ID or electronic signatures, and they weren't huge problems. They were actually quite trivial problems to us. As the business owner, that didn't worry me. What worried me was getting sued. There were certain things that we recognized were a huge challenge. The first one was, how do we secure the communications between the client and the law firm? So 10 years ago now, we started using a portal. And when we had a portal, we realized that we could give secure information to our clients. And that was a huge problem for us. That was borne out by someone who was defrauded out of £350,000 through an email fraud. So we saw that as a big problem. So we said, okay, we need to address that. And that was a big problem. And yet, interestingly, when you look at law firms, or the number of people that are offering portals to lawyers, is still minimal. And yet that's where the big problem is. Then going forward from there, when you looked at within the case itself, we said, where are the real problems in the case? And what would happen is, if you looked at people offering technology solutions, they'd say, it's all about the onboarding. That's what we need to do. And of course, the lawyers were going, well, it's no big deal. And the only reason that onboarding's got popular was because it's quite an easy problem to fix. And therefore, you could theoretically get people up and running quickly. Then when you say to people, that's great, but what about the middle bit? People say, that's just a lawyer issue. And they don't look at it any closely and go, hang on, should we do something about that? Because that's where the problem is. And then they go, I don't know, it's a black box. I don't want to look in there. So we said, look, we know where that problem is and we know how to fix it. So that's what we did. And with Legalito, we launched our first product. Well, I say launched, we gently told a few people about it in June. We started in June. The idea being is that we knew that if we went out with a big launch, we went out saying, ta-da, we would only be following in the footsteps of other people that had gone out at big launches and hadn't executed. And what happens is you lose faith with that. And you're seeing this now. You're seeing lawyers getting really skeptical about technology. And that's a very dangerous place to be. Because as soon as people start getting skeptical, they go, oh, no, nothing ever works. And then you're really stuffed. Okay. So deliberately, we didn't go out and say, we've got this amazing story and we've got this, and we didn't get funding. We didn't do anything like that. We had the total freedom to do whatever we liked and the best way to do it. And that's what we did in June. And I think, as Rich says, I'm pretty sure we've gone the right way. And I think it's working. And I think it's a really good lesson for other startups, I think they could learn from it. I think it's a great case study.
Yeah, definitely. And is it on the back of your reputation already that you could do this, though? Because you could go to law firms and say, just have a little play with this, or just have a little look at this and give me some feedback. Is it all about that reputation that got you to that point, or where maybe other people failed because either they didn't have the reputation or they were coming from property and trying to do law tech, if you see what I mean?
That is a completely valid point, and there's a lot of truth in it. Here's the reality. If I wind back 2 years ago to January 2022, I was running a law firm. Okay, I was totally invisible to other lawyers because I wouldn't talk to other lawyers. There was no reason to be. Okay, we had good profile with estate agents in London and the Southeast. People knew us and we were quite well known, and that's good news. And we had to pivot. We had to go, crikey, somehow now I've got to talk to people who, why would they talk to me? I'm the owner of a competitor. How on earth is this going to work? So what we did was we set the agenda, which was we've identified this problem and we're going to start talking about it. What I did was I said, I'm going to now start commentating from a position of knowledge, which was, this is my day job. I'm getting shouted at by clients. I'm going to now go and talk about this issue that is a real problem for us as a company. I did it on LinkedIn, 100%. It's all we did for 18 months was talk on LinkedIn about this problem, okay? Which is classic. If you look at books like Oversubscribed and so forth, it's classic behavior that people do. They talk about a topic to gain credibility. People trying to do this, and some people have been selling platforms have been trying to do it and failing, and you say to yourself, well, hang on, that's what they did. They talked about this problem, whatever. Where they're making the mistake, I think, was that they didn't come from a position where people went, oh yes, I've got that problem too. What they had was they were solving, and I'm talking in the past tense, which is harsh, but I just can't see any future for a generic solution that doesn't fix a particular problem. We were saying, here's a particular problem. We need to fix that particular issue. This wasn't about networks. This wasn't about lawyers talking to one another. Because if I had started off by saying, what we really need to do is we really need lawyers to collaborate more effectively, yeah, which is a hackneyed traditional route. And it wouldn't have worked because everyone would have gone, yeah, hashtag be nice. Okay, it wasn't going to work because everyone goes, who cares? Because they knew in the reality that lawyers weren't very nice to one another. They're quite unpleasant to one another. So we were sitting there going, be nice. And everyone's going, yeah, be nice. Have you noticed now everyone's going, whatever happened to be nice? Yeah, people reverted to type, okay, because they're freaking horrible with one another. So we said, okay, here's this problem. And then when it came to it, I was sitting there going, crikey, I've got to get someone to go out there, not just us, to go out there and say, actually, we need to do this. So I identified a few people that were vocal, and it was quite obvious. I went online and I looked at people who I thought, well, that could work and so forth. And I targeted all the people that were commenting on LinkedIn. And when I spoke to them, said, hey, we need to talk about this. Not only did I have people that were in an initial cohort that said, yes, we want to do this and we want to push this, but I was talking to their advisors. So I spoke to all the consultants who were going in and talking to lawyers and going, hey, have you heard about this? Not selling us, but just talking about it to gain this groundswell opinion. And go, here's someone who's produced something that actually you could use. And that's how we did it. And we're still doing it. Only now, here we are 6 months in, only now are we starting to, I did a couple of interviews. We deliberately held it back. And I didn't talk about product. I just talked about the general problem and we carried on. We're 6 months in. I've had nearly 1,000 lawyers register to use it. We're just about to hit the 500 lawyer firm mark. That's 1 in 12, or 1 in 8, the other way around. Excuse me, 1 in 8, 12%. 1 in 8 firms in this country have now registered and looked at this product. Zero marketing. The only reason they're doing it is because either they've been told to do it, which again is an interesting point, or idle curiosity. This is when I did bring in the law firm. So come November, I said with the partnership, which is my law firm, I said, if we've got people on the other side, we're going to instruct them to use Legalita. You must use this. Because I'd worked out that what we were trying to solve was a problem that people would always say no to, but they were codependent. They didn't have a choice. I had someone yesterday got quite shirty with me and said, I don't see why I have to use this. Who are you to tell me I have to use it? And I'm like, I'm the person asking the questions. I play by the rules. The irony, of course, of all of this is when you talk to lawyers and you say, when they're saying, oh, why should we use a platform that we didn't choose? You say, so the last time you used with a developer, what did you do? No, I'm not going to go to your portal and download your paperwork from that plot. They just do it. And the only reason they do it is because the developer says, you've got to do it. And they go, Okay. And when you're trying to build something that's codependent, you need leverage. But also what you need is you need people like myself that will go out there and prepare to have the fights with the lawyers and go, I had someone yesterday who goes, how dare you tell me how to do my job? I say, I'm not. I'm just saying, can you use these platform means? Because whatever you're doing, this is better. And they know it. And she resisted, but we were like, okay. And in the end, we can't do this, we can't do that. It's like, you can download it. Yes, you can use it on your system. Yes, you can integrate it to your case management system. You can do this. And then they'll turn around and say things, no, you need to put it in the post.
You need to put it in the post.
We've had a couple of those. That would be a hard no.
Yeah, that would be a hard no from me too, mate.
Seriously, honestly, I've had 3 now. No, if you're going to do this, you need to put it in the post. No, we're not going to do that.
Lawyers want to revamp this reputation that they have. They might want to think about joining us.
It is surprising. It is really surprising. But as I say, the really good news is that we've got some really good names of people who are saying, yes, I'm happy to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Big firms, small firms. Someone just said, is there any particular type of firm that's more attuned to using this or to saying no? So not really. The only problem with the big firms is they have such inertia that they've got so many people to change over that it's quite tricky.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, they want to do it because they know, everybody knows this is where the claims are.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely interesting. And as I say, what we've demonstrated is that if you solve a real problem in a way that can work with the way that people are doing things today, they'll do it. They will do it. But there's got to be enough value. We're seeing this as a flood of onboarding solutions at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And in the nicest possible way. And I love them. They're great guys. They're fantastic. But it's like, heck, which one do we pick? And what problem is it you're solving? And it's a really difficult one. And that's the only area that we're seeing in legal tech outside of the magic circle, outside of the e-discovery, outside of the really big ticket stuff, that there's any technology going on. And the problem is all these lawyers are sitting there going, like us, what is that going to do for us? Not a lot, not a lot.
So
yeah,
just going back to 18 months ago, 2 years ago, obviously well known within certain circles, but not within the circle that you would need to sell this.
Yeah.
You decided to use LinkedIn as your platform, and we've seen people do it. Do you know Andrew Stanton?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, he did exactly the same thing, but for himself, for a consultant. It does work, obviously. Would you advise to a startup now, someone who has been in property for 10 years or has this idea, would you recommend social media still as a platform that in 18 months' time, so end of 2025, 2026, they would then be able to look to launch something? Or do you think that actually so many people have done it or are doing it or are coaching it? Is it still something that's going to work, or have you adapted or changed?
That's a really good point. Oversaturation, for arguments. I suppose my answer to that would be, when we looked at what social media platforms there was only one choice. Yeah, being reasonable about it. People have been trying to do this. They've been trying to launch products through social media. I think the mistake that people seem to make is that they take a very traditional, what they're doing is they're taking a traditional marketing route and transplanting it, lifting it up and putting it into LinkedIn, for example. Talk about the benefits, not the features. But it's still quite featurey, even though it should be benefits and so forth. Case studies. Look at this person talking about this. They're still doing the same thing that we used to do in tech marketing 20 years ago. Although luckily this one's gone away now. The one that people always used to do, which they said was do a survey, then write a report on the back of it. Do a white paper on the back of a survey. Yeah, classic marketing, right? Okay. We were doing this 20 years ago. They were doing this up until about a year ago on LinkedIn. I saw people doing, surveys, can you do this and do this? I've noticed that sort of going away a bit now because people are on a bit like, yeah, we've seen what happens now. You do a survey, then you do a white paper, which is really boring. And the traditional route of launching a product, I think what you have to be, I think you've got to be really smart. And that sounds pretty arrogant, but if you're going to use social media, you've got to be smart about it. And I think I don't see many people talking about something where I go, oh, that's interesting. There's a couple, actually, to be fair. I've seen 2 or 3. There's a couple of AI vendors that are doing some stuff where I'm going, that's quite clever. Because it gets you interested. You go, oh, right. But they don't talk about product. And that's the really clever thing. They talk about, we're doing this and people are finding it amazing because this and this. And there's some really clever stuff. To name names, I'm talking about like Avail, people like that. Really clever use of social media where you look at it and you go, actually, that's really clever. Engaging, smart, because you've got to be smart, not just features and so forth, and not just memes. I think you can do it, but you've got to find your own way. So our way was, there's this huge problem about inquiry management. What a pain. It's really difficult. Surely someone's got to come up with an answer to this. What are we doing about it? And I think if you're a PropTech person looking to solve a particular problem, I think there is still room to amplify that problem, I think. Because there's not that many people doing that. You do see a lot of feature-rich posting.
Yeah, there's a lot of people about their technology or what their technology can do, but there aren't enough people talking about what the problem is. And you don't even need to necessarily get into how to solve it right away. You just demonstrate empathy and concern and a willingness to learn from your client base about what their challenges are. That's what I tend to do with my clients. We never go straight into spray and pray marketing, I call it. Much information out there as you can. No, that never works. People want to hear about their own problems, and you need to demonstrate an understanding of that. Once you do that, you start to build a relationship.
It's not a technology solution that we're looking to address. It's a hearts and minds problem. And it sounds really simplistic and really glib. But if you can move the discussion onto hearts and minds and trust, and how do you gain that trust? It's really difficult. I always say to people what we're doing. I said, we're trying to change the way 4,000 law firms work. Flipping tall order. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by getting people that other people trust doing it and going, yeah, you can trust me. But to do that, the other thing that you have to do, which is a challenge, is you've got to have people using it. One of my favorite things from a marketing perspective is you have to ship. And it sounds really basic, but I speak to so many people and you go, and one of my questions is, who's using it? Not because I care whether it's Mishcon de Raya or Healy's, or I don't care who it is. But if you're not shipping, then there's no one that can then go, as a PropTech provider, you don't have the confidence to be able to talk about it and to be able to name drop. One thing we did, which no one's ever done before from a marketing perspective, and I've always wanted to do it, and I was told not to do it, we have a Hall of Fame. And it's fantastic. What we do is everyone that uses it, we put them on our website. Yeah, it's a live list of users. Yeah. Have you ever seen anyone do that before? No. Oh, you got to get permission. You don't want to say that they're using it. No. The point is, we've got a product that will benefit from people working together collaboratively. Therefore, we have to tell people who's using it.
In your onboarding, you agree to have your logo displayed on the website as a client.
I didn't bother that. I didn't bother because then I had to have the rigmarole of getting permission. I thought, forget the logo, just put their name on there. And I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this. And we had a little flag in our system that could take them off if they were complaining, right? So we launched this in October. Okay. Now we've got nearly 500 firms on there now. Yeah. How many complaints have I had? None. So I'm like, then what I did, one of the very effective campaigns I ran was I had every Friday at the same time, I posted what I called it the Legalito alphabet. And I split the firms into alphabetical order. And I say, these are the 10 firms, and I linked to them, on LinkedIn. And every Friday I did it. People loved that. All I was saying was, hey, these people are using it. Again, guess how many complaints I got that I was referring to other people? None. And part of the reason I didn't was because it was LinkedIn. And that kind of accepted behavior on LinkedIn, right? In fact, it's almost flattery. So that was what I was most proud of. But I got to Z, I thought, I can't flip and do that again. But I like that, and people really liked it because it made them feel, oh, I wonder who's going to be on next. Is it going to be us? Someone wrote to me and said, great news. They posted on LinkedIn. Good. Fantastic. Again, all you've got to do is you've got to manipulate what the platform is good at, which is flattery. Oh, look, I got mentioned. So mention people. Why not? People don't do it. I don't understand that. Why do people not? Do they think they need permission to mention other firms? They never do it. I remember talking to a big platform. They were a big blockchain platform provider. Okay. I said to them, who's working with your platform? Oh, I can't tell you. I was like, you should, because otherwise, how are we going to know if anyone's using it? No, NDAs. I went, maybe you shouldn't do NDAs. Just a thought. NDAs are not good for market awareness.
No, they're not. I get asked about NDAs a lot. I always sign them for potential new clients because they worry that you're going to help business. But really, they're completely pointless. As soon as you put anything out there, people are going to start copying you if it's any good. Yeah. So just crack on and shout about it from the rooftops and don't worry about what other people might do. That's my advice anyway. It sounds like we're on the same page.
A very wise person said to me, anyone can copy software. It's true. Yeah, and you can. Yeah. People say to us, they go, "Oh, but so we're in the midst of an agreement with a large case management vendor right now," and we were like, "Oh, but supposing they provide the information to someone else and they copy it," and I'm like, "They might, and that's okay, because I've got first mover advantage." Interestingly, actually, that's all we've got. Yes, we know what we're doing, and we've got a great product, all this kind of stuff, but all we've got is that we're factoring in first. We better not mess it up, because we've got nothing else, right? We've got nothing else other than the fact was, I mean, a big firm that wanted to do what we're doing. And we were a bit like, and this was in March, they said, "We want to do this." And we were a bit like, a bit of a worry. And I went, "No, it's okay, because they don't have the route to market and they don't have the credibility." And I was like, flipping like, I hope this works. It turns out that, and I spoke to them, they've put it on the back burner for now, because they've obviously gone, "Actually, that's a bit of a pain in the neck." I'm like, yeah, it is. But it was. We have nothing else than the first mover advantage.
So you've had a, let's say, 6-month period. You've had from what sounds like it and your energy, a pretty successful first 6 months.
Yes.
Which is brilliant. How do you now scale, or what's your plan to actually take it from people using it? Because in 12 months, people could be bored of it. So what is your plan to keep it going?
This is where it gets difficult. I woke up January 1 going, flip, this is where it gets difficult, okay? Because what we've been able to do, and bearing in mind what we're doing as our first product, which is we're sending requests to other people with questions and saying, "Can you answer them?" And half of them are saying, "Yeah, I'll take a look at that," and half of those are replying, which is great, okay? But that's all they're doing. They're passive, right? They're sitting there going, "We're going to reply." The next stage is I've got to have people going, "I'm going to ask those questions." I don't want to be that passive person doing that. And that's our next stage, which is we have to move people from, "Oh, whenever I get such and such on the other side, I know they're going to be using this platform, and that's great," to, "Oh, I'll do that now." And that's a huge challenge. And that's so what we're now doing is we're now saying, and bearing in mind, we've never targeted in a sales perspective those people that we're working on the other side. We did a bit of, every month we sent out a newsletter, but that was about it. Okay. And at some point we've got to go, those are the guys, to create a network effect, that they've got to start now proactively doing stuff. Even though we've got nearly 500 firms that are actively using it, okay, of that, there's only about 60 that have ever tried creating an inquiry. It's a tiny proportion. And that's the challenge, is how you start moving people from passive to proactive. And to do that is a challenge, because I'm sitting there going, right, okay, so right. But the way I think it's going to work is, because I'm now getting to the point where the people that I've been talking to actively use it, it's been a long road. It's 6 to 9 months. They're now getting to the point where they're going, "Okay, we're going to try it." So we're just in that stage now. And I'm hoping by those few, it's probably only about 50 firms that I've been talking to who are saying, "Yeah, now we're going to do it." Of those, probably 15 will actually do something, or even 20 maybe. And it's now getting those, will they, and am I going to cross my fingers and go, hope that the mere fact that more people are using it, that other people will go, "Okay, yes, we'll try doing this now." How do you say to a lawyer, "Right, you need to change the way you're doing things"? You need to, because it's not good enough. And here's a platform to do. That's the challenge. And that's where we're at right now. It's how do we get people to move from the reactive to the proactive? And that's what we're working on, which is why now we're moving more into a product phase. In other words, this is what the product does. You need to be doing something about this. And for the first time, we're sitting there going, maybe we'll do a podcast. I don't know. Because we haven't. We've not done any promotional videos, anything. We produced our first A4 sheet, product sheet. I'd never do that. Everyone produces A4 product sheets, right? I'm like, I can't stand product sheets, whatever, with screenshots and stuff. But we did it. I fought it for 2 years. That's all I'll say. 2 years I held it.
Well done for keeping it up for that long. I've still not done it. People ask me to send them a leaflet or an A4 page, and I'm like, literally all of that information is just on my website. Why would you want that in a piece of paper?
Well,
I can't.
The issue is, I tell you what, the argument that was put to me was the market that we're in, the lawyer market, they like to read stuff. And I get it, and they do, I know that, and that's fine. Okay, which is why I did that. I think one of the keys is, at what point do you start releasing more information about a product? Yeah, so I've been very cautious about not telling people too much about the product, just to try and generate that. So people go, "Oh, I've heard it's really good." You go, "That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's right." And I think at some point, and I don't know when it is, and that's the tricky point, Rich. At some point, we've got to go, Or maybe you never do. Maybe people maybe never show products. Maybe the most successful products are never shown. Like we always use as an example, and it's embarrassing to use it, but like Trello. Trello was our go-to marketing concept, because what we found is people use Trello and they told their mates, and Trello is fantastic. Like, oh, it's really good because it solved the problem of unstructured data that people could just dump stuff in, and it solved the problem. And we use it throughout our firm now.
Mm-hmm.
It's brilliant and it's fantastic. And we tell people you've got to use Trello. It's really good. And there was two things that we liked about it. First of all, easy access. It was free for most things that you needed, but also it didn't need any training.
Yeah, that's the big one.
And that's why, so when we developed our product, we said, okay, people obviously like products where they don't need any training on it.
To a degree, they expect it these days.
And so if you've got something that's really easy to use, so we say to people, look, we've always made it really open that if they found the link, there is a link on our website, which is, it's reasonably well hidden, but it's there, and you just click on it. You can go and you can register and you can use straight away the full product. You can just use it. No, and we don't promote it because we just wanted to see what people were doing and whether people would come in and start using it. We had a couple of experienced lawyers came in, started using it, made up their mind that it was terrible because it was dumbing them down and that they couldn't possibly use it, and then proceeded to tell me that, which was fine. I'm like, that's okay. Now, if we'd have said, look, don't find it yourself, but actually you can't use it, would they have been more interested? Probably. Their mind's already made up, so you sit there going, am I worried about how I get people to use something that that they probably don't think they need anyway? It's a tricky one. How you get people to, what sounds really awful is that we know the way that people are doing things today is really bad, and we know they know that. So even though we've got a defined problem that they have, and in their heart of hearts, they know that the way they're doing things is not good. To get them to look at something and to get them to proactively start using it to solve a problem that they know that they have is really difficult.
Yeah.
Let alone the problems they don't know they have.
It's funny because in big firms, and this is speaking from experience, they have the same problem. They know they have a problem. They just either don't fix it or don't want to fix it, or they don't have the right person, or the person doesn't stand up. And because every industry has its own nuance, and it's lawyers so intelligent but so scared of everything. The point I'm trying to make is the nuances, these little things in the market that you're describing so well in the legal sector, but people who have tried to come in and do it in property or tried to come and do it in finance, it's the same thing. If you don't know those nuances and what people are scared of, or how to react if some almost objection handle their fear because you've been through it, or you understand it because you've got a law firm and you know how scared you are of, I'll give you a really good example. We could have said we're using AI to generate inquiries based on information about a case. We could have done that. Okay, there's nothing stopping it. We're doing some work in this area, but we didn't do that. In fact, we did everything we possibly could to avoid even any mention or suggestion this could be AI. Because we knew if we did that, we were introducing even more problems. And the problems that it wasn't that there was a resistance to change. We knew the problem that we were introducing was one of liability. So if we sit down and we go, no, don't worry, and there are AI tools out there that are being used for that, and you go, I get it, it's AI, therefore it's risk, there's liability that hasn't been sorted out yet because no one's worked out the risk around insuring liability yet with AI. Okay, but the mere fact that you're selling a product with a built-in insurance portion, okay, is a problem. Purposely couldn't talk about that because I knew then immediately people go, oh, I know there's reasons saying that. I had someone say to me yesterday, which threw me completely off base. All right, they said, I don't think we can use this because it doesn't fall into line with CQS requirements. Now you'll have to run with this by me again. Is that a problem? Well, I think it is. I think it is a problem. Now I don't know whether they're overreacting or not. Okay, but they were saying the SRA is getting much more strict, and if we're using this, which what we do is for pre-contract inquiries, that means we're raising pre-contract inquiries. And a CQS firm, we're not supposed to do that. I said, well, you have to do that. Yeah, but we're not supposed to. And if we use something that makes it easier and better to do, that could be seen as going against the rules of CQS. I'm like, that's a problem I didn't see. That was totally from left field yesterday. And I'm like, wow, okay. And so even when you know even when you think you understand stuff, and actually I'm not convinced by it, but even still, it was a big enough issue for her to say, actually, this is going to be a problem for us. And it was a bigger firm, but even still, I'm sitting there going,
That's a problem. So how do you overcome that? And that's a really good lesson, actually, is when you think you understand the regulatory. I've had people quote regulatory all the time, right? And bearing in mind, the first thing we did was check with the regulators beforehand whether it be a problem, and it isn't. But when people do quote regulatory stuff, you've got to know, you've got to know your ground. It's really true.
Two things on that. For estate agent wise, because obviously I know you're within that field. If Labour get into government, you're going to have an A level in something in order to be an estate agent. I'd like to comment on that. But also, are you worried about, so I think I know what an inquiry is. Are you worried about upfront data from estate agents then coming across, meaning you don't have to rate as many inquiries, don't need to be raised from a product perspective?
No, ideally, we would have more upfront information. We need that information because that's what we're desperate for. We're thirsty for data. We're thirsty for information. I wish, so I've been talking to the guys doing BASPI and all this kind of stuff, and the guys over at Movely and doing some fantastic work around data structures. And I'm like, give us your data, because I'll be able to do what. It's actually the reverse. I see the people that are creating data or want to have this upfront information, right? What they haven't come to is the point of what the heck do we do with that? No one says this, right? You say to me, you go, upfront information, you go, great. What are you going to do with it? You're going to exchange quicker, aren't you? Yeah, okay. That's great and all that, but no one said to them, no one's joined the dots and gone, actually, in fact, Landmark, to their credit, have said, we need to get rid of all inquiries. And to do that, we need really good information. I'm like, I'm with you 100%. 100%. We absolutely do. In fact, I'm talking with them because I 100% agree with them. However, reality kicks in and then goes, yeah, but that's not going to happen though, is it? But you absolutely should. You shouldn't be having this ridiculous situation where we're doing a gap analysis on all of this data that's missing information. And that's all we're doing. We're just doing gap analysis. Well, that's crazy, right? Well, I'm going to find out what you haven't told me. Okay. But the problem is, of course, because of caveat emptor, who gets sued? And we do get sued. And I think when we're talking with agents, interestingly, and agents are involved in this because they need to know what's going on as well. They need to be involved, but not too involved, is our experience, which you tell them what's going on, and that's great. You can't allow them to impact it because then you get into all sorts of problems, and we have all sorts of issues in the past. But so we share our information with agents, which is great. And brokers, I'm not fussed. It's like, great. If you can see what's going on, it stops you being in the dark. But the provenance of data is tricky. I'll give you one example. We had a management pack for a sale of a flat that was sent to us by an agent. Couldn't get hold of it. They sent us, don't worry, there was this big white gap in the middle of it. Well, that's an interesting gap. We really need to get this from the seller's lawyer. And they were, oh, that's fine. We got it from the seller's lawyer. And guess what was in that gap? The lack of an EWS1 form, which the agent thought, that is going to cause me a problem. So when you talk about provenance of data, this isn't about EPCs and gas safe certificates.
So regulation of agent, I mean, the A-level thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Everyone knows that. But, from in your experience as a lawman and also, what do you think?
I don't know, because you could look at it and you could say, how has regulating lawyers helped us? Have we got really good quality people doing conveyancing right now, which is a regulated activity, right? There's only one or two, yeah. And what do people complain about the most? Poor quality conveyancing, right? We're regulated up to the eyeballs. What's the impact being? I don't know. And the problem is people seem to think that if you regulate, you get good behavior. I see remarkably bad behavior from lawyers, like outstandingly bad behavior, outstandingly rude, patronizing, disgraceful behavior by lawyers, but they're all regulated. Interestingly, we had a situation a few years ago where the other side was behaving particularly badly, and they'd given an undertaking to pay off a charge, pay off a mortgage. Okay, standard stuff. We will pay off this mortgage, and they didn't, which obviously was a bit of a problem because then our client then had a mortgage still on there. And we said, could you remove it? And they went, yeah, of course. And they never did for 6 months. And this was caused real problems. So in the end, we had to report them to the regulator. Yeah, reported them to the regulator, and the regulator went, sort it out amongst yourselves. That was a breach of an undertaking on a charge on a property. And the regulator said, sort it out amongst yourselves. Regulation, does it solve much? Keeps people on their toes. I don't know if it has a material impact on the quality of work that's done. If you regulate an agent, so they do something bad, and then, What do? They report them to the regulator, and the regulator comes down and says, don't be bad again. And the agent goes, okay, I won't be bad again. And then the regulator goes away.
There's no consequence, are there?
Maybe they fine you.
I think that's it. I think that is how you scare estate agents, is by saying you're going to take some of your money. The FCA, that's pretty much all they do.
Yeah.
Is fine people and then charge the rest of the firms for all the
exactly.
firms. I hate the FCA with a passion. But because you get good mortgage brokers and bad ones, you get good. I think I agree with the concept of it. A mortgage broker and IFA, they need that standard of structure because of what happened in the 80s. Like it was quite clear that they just did what they want and drove around in Ferraris, basically. So that worked for them, but not for us.
To be fair, I had this person posting very inappropriately on LinkedIn last week, having a pop at me. Ordinarily, I wouldn't care, but the problem was he had a badge and it said, I'm a solicitor. Okay. And he was being very unsolicited. So I wrote to what we call it a managing partner letter. Okay. Which is, I'm just going to give you a little warning. And I wrote to the managing partner, you need to stop doing this because you're bringing it into disrepute. There's a risk that you're bringing your firm into disrepute and so forth. Silence. And then he did it again. He posted something else about me. So I said, if he does that again, I'm going to publish my letter with my report to the SRA. I'll make it a matter of public record. Okay. But then it stopped. I think it's a good stick to beat people with. Yeah. And it would with agents, I think, therefore be that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think they do get scared. I mean, we do get nervous about our regulator, to be fair. We do. I've got them coming in at the end of the month, actually, because they come to us to see where we're doing stuff. And everyone's a little bit nervous. We're a little bit like, oh, good, the regulator's coming in. It'll be fine. They want to learn from us. Good, okay. Great. I asked him.
I think you really hit the nail on the head when the concept of messaging. And it's funny that you talk about not doing any marketing, because what I'm seeing is top shelf marketing, which is built on relationships and trust and not throwing money at a problem, which is ultimately what you're trying to deliver for people as well. So that all meshes quite beautifully. So if there was just one very short, sweet piece of advice to give to our listeners who tend to be tech founders, what would that be?
The way I always follow things, know who you want to sell to and how you're going to get to them. I think the biggest mistake people make is they don't work out their route to market. And when they haven't worked out their route to market, then they haven't worked out who they want to sell to. And the biggest mistake I see, I call it the 1% in China syndrome. Oh, if only I could sell to 1% of China, I'll be rich. You go, but you can't sell to 1% of China. Yeah. So I'm always like, who are you selling to? And I had someone just the other day, or anyone could use this, but they're not going to. Okay. So what we've always said is, who am I targeting? And that will then determine what you're going to be talking about. But most importantly, how are you going to flipping do that? But no, I'm amazed that people don't, and I don't really understand. I remember when I started off doing home information packs, and I sat before they were launched, and I sat in a table at a conference, and people said, so what you doing? And I said, we're only pitching to the top end of the market. That's all we're interested in, because I know that they want someone to take their problem away. We can do this. And someone looked at me and that's amazing. I can't believe you thought of that. I said, we've got to work out who I'm selling to.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm really stuffed. In fact, interestingly, one of the challenges we've got with this product is anyone could use it theoretically. And that makes it even more difficult. And one of my biggest challenges, I don't quite know who the best people are to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said, okay, if they're vocal, then chances are they're going to talk about it. But yeah, that's a huge problem. And that would be my advice is, who you're selling to and how you're going to get to them.
Very good advice.
Yeah, I think that's great. And from our initial chat to where, because I think we spoke on the phone first, to where you are now is 6-7 months success story. And it's going to be really interesting for me personally, and obviously for you, but to see how you keep going. And
this is where it gets tricky. Yeah, I'll make no bones about it. But I'm sitting here going, this is where it gets tricky. Yeah, and different phases are difficult. You've got the initial, hey, this is cool. Then it's like, when do we start charging for it? And how do we know what we're going to charge, but when do we start doing it? And people saying, okay, yes, I'm now got to the point where yes, I can do that. It's challenging.
One of the hardest bits is just making something business as usual with a product, and that's I think we should do one in 6 months and see where you are. I think it's a really interesting.
I'd love to. Yeah, I think in 6 months we'll know a lot more with that.
Hi, I'm Rich Wynn.
And I'm Rebecca Nixon, and this is the PropTech Growth Podcast.
Every episode, we interview an expert in the PropTech startup space, gathering their advice and expertise to help you run a successful PropTech business.
I'm the Portable PropTech CMO, and I help PropTech startups build and scale their commercial growth strategy.
I'm Rich from Rich Wynn Consultancy. I specialise in operations, sales and process, helping fintechs and PropTech companies to grow. Thanks for joining us on the PropTech Growth Podcast. To learn more, you can find us on LinkedIn or email proptechpodcast@icloud.com. See you next time.